Welcome back to the Seeing Red MMA podcast. I'm your host, Dustin. UFC 289 is in the books. It is over. It is done. We don't have to deal with that shit anymore. Yeah. It was a card. I mean, it was pretty good up until the main event. We'll get into that here in a bit. But, yeah, overall, this card was pretty ass. Not gonna lie. You're probably wondering what's on my head right now. Shout out to my boy Hayden. This is a late birthday present. I'm the MMA shaman now. I will be tailgating next January 6th outside the Capitol. Just kidding. That is a joke. Don't come for me, FBI. I am not an informant. But yeah, UFC 289 is in the books. Amanda Nunes defeats Irina Aldana in a unanimous decision, 5 rounds, for the women's bantamweight title. Also, you got Charles Oliveira getting a win over Beneil Dariush via first-round TKO, and a couple other good finishes on the card as well, too. I'm just waiting for my computer to load up, but yeah, that main event, if you purchase this pay-per-view, which I know there's a lot of good Samaritans out there that did. I apologize if you did or not, because that was not worth your money, and you should request a refund, because that was probably one of the worst main events we have gotten in quite some time. Irina Aldana landed one right hand, and that was the only significance she had in this entire fight. Amanda Nunes was there the entire time, beating her round to round the entire fucking time. I mean, if we look at the numbers, Nunes, total strikes 196 to Irina Aldana's 57. 57 total strikes in 5 rounds. Significant strikes. 142 to 41. Nunes outstruck her in significant strikes by 100 strikes. 101 strikes. That is crazy. For you to be in a title shot, and that's the kind of numbers you're putting up, 1, you shouldn't have been in there. 2, you have some sort of mental block. Or 3, that's how good Nunes is from the rest of the division. But, wow, that was the worst showcase I have ever seen in a main event in a while. I mean, this is a complete waste of everyone's time. This is horrible. But there's some good news that came out of this main event. Amanda Nunes retires. Yay! She's got another baby on the way with their wife, Nina. Congratulations, Mazel Tov. Good for them. They got properties in Brazil. She's got a lot of money built up from fighting over the years. Got other companies and whatnot. Congratulations. Don't want to keep getting punched in the face or punch people in the face. You got other means of making money outside of fighting. Assalamu alaikum. All the power to you. But the downside is, well, actually, other bonus. We don't have women's featherweight anymore. Goodbye, women's 145. That ain't going to be here anymore. That's gone. This is probably the last women's double champ we'll ever see, unfortunately. But, yeah. If you look at the rankings for the UFC's bantamweight division, let me get that pulled up. I can give you an idea who is next in line for the vacant strap. So, let's take a look. Because I already know who I have in mind. I just want to make sure the numbers line up to what I'm thinking. So, we got the UFC's rankings here. Let's go all the way down to women's bantamweight. So, number 1 bantamweight, former champion Juliana Pena, who was scheduled to fight Nunes this time around, but had to pull out due to injury. Number 2 is Raquel Pennington. I repeat, number 2 is Raquel Pennington. Now, no slouch to Raquel Pennington. She's a lovely lady. I've met her in Vegas after Tisha fought Wei Lee back in the day. She's cool chick. Fighter, though? She's number 2? What? I knew this going into the video, though. Like, I already knew the rankings So I just making sure what I thought I knew was correct. But Raquel Pennington being the number 2 women's bantamweight in the world is insane. Number 3 is Holly Holm. Number 4, Ketlin Vieira. Number 5, Irene Aldana. So we already got Irene Aldana getting her title shot and blowing it, absolutely blowing it, not doing a single goddamn thing to try and win that belt. Other than that right hand she landed in the first round. I mean, it was just Nunes the whole time, nothing but Nunes. And I mean, I don't even want to talk about Aldana's performance because she did so little, it's not even worth talking about. But your top 3 women's bantamweights is Juliana Pena, who is horrible, is only good on the ground, has some of the worst striking I've ever seen. Raquel Pennington, a middle-aged woman who has decent boxing, I guess you would say. And then Holly Holm, who's 41 years old. What the fuck is going on? This whole division is in shambles. I say you scrap women's bantamweight altogether. I mean, Amanda Nunes was the last piece holding them all together. I mean, the rest of that division, I mean, even look at it. Like, Yana Kunitskaya, and now Yana Santos, is number 6. What? Huh? Excuse me? Excuse me? It's not a good division, guys. This division is horrible. If there's ever another women's bantamweight title fight main event or a fight night main event, it's going to end in a decision. I might be wrong, but I'm saying it right now. It will end in a decision, and we will all be bored out of our fucking minds. Because that is the worst division in the entire UFC. It is nothing but middle-aged women that were fighting during the Ronda Rousey boom that got them into the UFC, and they've been riding her coattail ever since. The only ones who were able to make a name for themselves during that boom were Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, and Juliana Pena, the luckiest fighter on earth, because she just so happened to beat Nunes that first time because Nunes was just, I don't know, just fucking retarded that night. Every other fighter on this list, like number 10, Mayra Bueno Silva. The top 10 is in shambles right now. Macy Chiasson. Jesus Christ, guys. Scrap this division. We don't need it anymore. We don't want it anymore. It doesn't draw flies to shit. Why do we even have it? You know why? Because we need to have it. Because we need to have a certain amount of fighters on our roster in order for the UFC to meet their obligations of X amount of fight nights or even just cards per year. So you got to have these shitty fucking divisions that nobody wants to watch, because in order for the UFC to make money, they have to have these shitty divisions here. So expect it to still be around for a while. Women's featherweight is out the door. But also expect Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington to fight for a vacant title, or Juliana Pena versus Holly Holm to fight for a vacant title. Are you excited about that? Are you happy about that? Good, because neither am I. I don't want to see that shit. Nobody wants to see that shit. You know why? Because it's shit. Moving on to the co-main event here, Charles Oliveira gets the first round TKO win over Beneil Dariush. I may have went for Beneil Dariush in the last episode. I may or may have not have. I did. But, yeah, I mean, there were some points there where I thought Charles might have been in some trouble there. But, I mean, Charles definitely, he was just more aggressive, especially in the pocket there, in the tighter spaces. I mean, he landed that big right hook, and then, or first it was a straight right, turned into a head kick that kind of wobbled Beneil for a sec, and then he was able to follow it up with the right hook, left hook, right hook again, finish it on the ground, almost went for the back, and then realized that he's like, I'm just going to punch him out here. So expect Charles to maybe get a title shot against Makhachev in October. Probably not. I don't think that'll happen. I think just because they want some fresh blood for the new champion, you'll probably get the winner of Poirier versus Gaethje versus Makhachev first, since they're somewhat on the same timeline there. And then when that fight happens, maybe Charles gets a title shot. Or maybe my insane friend Hayden, the same guy that gave me the horns, he said Charles is going to fight Conor. Which won't happen. That won't happen either because Charles isn't even going to fight Chandler. And we know what Charles did to Chandler. I know MMA math doesn't always work, but at the same time, though, Charles does very bad things to Conor. But if that fight does get made and Conor somehow does pull it off, you get Khabib Jr. versus Conor. So Russia versus Ireland again. Yay, another rear naked choke win for the Russians. But either way, it's so good to see Charles get a win like this because he desperately needed it. I mean, we all thought he was done, especially with Beneil on the come-up that he was there. We all thought Beneil was going to be trouble for Makhachev, and who knows, he very well might be. But based off what we saw Charles do to him, there's not a single position I think Makhachev loses Beneil or loses to Beneil in if they were to fight. I think Beneil gets destroyed by Makhachev, probably in the first round. Probably gets submitted, head and arm choke, or just drives a shoulder into his face, punches him out, whatever the case is. I don't think Beneil, from what he's showing, I don't think he's championship caliber. He's definitely top 5 caliber. I think he can still hang with the likes of Poirier, a Gaethje, a Chandler, things like that. I definitely think he's that echelon. Do I think he's top tier as a champion? No, I do not. Unfortunately, I do not. I like Beneil, though. It took me a while to get on the train there, but ever since he started that win streak that now has been snapped by Charles, I don't think he'll be getting anywhere near that point that he was at back in the day. But another fight that I was very interested in going into, just because I've been following this guy since he's made his debut, Mike Malott gets the second round submission over Adam Fugit. 19 strikes total for Malott, 16 for Fugit, so pretty even on the strikes there. But the 2 takedowns for Mike Malott, especially going into that second round, opened up the position for him to get the submission win. But here's what's crazy is that all of the strikes that Mike Malott threw and landed were all significant. 19 significant strikes out of 19 total strikes with 1 knockdown. Mike Malott is on a 3-fight win streak, all finishes in the UFC. I say you give him a top 15 guy after this, maybe even like a D-Rod, a guy that was just in the top 15, somebody to wet his beak, or maybe even like a Ponzinibbio, something like that. I think that's a good matchup for him. I think he needs a matchup like that for the fans to really get behind him. I even know that the fans there tonight were behind him, especially the people that fell off the railing that were trying to say hi to him when he was walking out. You might have saw that if you were watching the fights, but these guys were, if you ever notice when they're walking out, you see the people up top and on the sides, they're on the railings there, they're sticking their hands out. Hey, the railing just broke and like 3 people fell to the ground. Like just straight fell. So I don't know if they died or not or what happened. Hopefully they didn't, but if somebody got hurt, expect that arena to get a pretty hefty lawsuit. But at the same time, though, I mean, he's got fans, especially in Canada, because we haven't had a big Canadian presence in a while since like a George St. Pierre. So ever since George St. Pierre retired, there's been no one to kind of reclaim that throne. So I would say expect Mike Malott to do everything in his power to become that new guy because they desperately need it in Canada. I mean, name another Canadian fighter that you're dying to see fight. I'll wait. No one. You're not dying to see any Canadian fighter fight. That's why Mike Malott, with momentum that he has with the 3 finishes in a row, he needs to make the most out of it and try and gun for some of these guys. I know he's a really nice guy too. He doesn't like to talk shit or anything like that. But if you want to get as many fans as you need to under your belt in order to kind of back you and ride with you, then you need to start calling out some guys. I'd say you start maybe talking a little bit more shit, still respectful. I wouldn't like take it too far like a Conor would or something like that. But at the same time, though, I mean, I would try a little bit to maybe get under some fighters' skin to maybe draw them out to a fight against you. Because let's be honest, he's not an easy fight. He's definitely not an easy fight there. I mean, I wouldn't want to fight Mike Malott, let alone not because of the fact that I'm not a UFC fighter, but because he's dangerous everywhere. I mean, he's got submissions, he's got knockouts, he can do it all. So, yeah. Fight before that, you had Danny Ige winning a unanimous decision over Nate Landwehr. I don't know what my brother was smoking on, but he thought Nate Landwehr was doing a pretty good job. No, he wasn't. He's getting beat every single round. Unanimous. 3 rounds to nothing. I mean, there is some instances where, like, look at this. This is crazy. 88 total strikes for Ige, 74 total strikes for Landwehr, 88 significant strikes for Ige, 74 strikes for Landwehr, 1 knockdown. Just by looking at the numbers, it sounds like it's a competitive fight, but it really isn't. You go back and watch that fight, it's pretty easy to tell who won that fight there. Even though they landed all the strikes that each of them landed were significant, you could definitely tell that there was a power difference between the two of them, and it was Dan Ige. He was able to land the cleaner shots, his technique was better, he was in the pocket more, ripping the body, has that nice jab, body shot, straight right to the body, left hook, the Michael Chandler special. So, yeah, I mean, Nate Landwehr, he's a good fighter, not top 15 material. He's just one of those guys that's just fun to put on a fight night card and like maybe main card slot, but no, I don't think he's worthy of a ranking. But I do think there is somebody that is maybe worthy of a ranking here sometime soon, is Marc-Andre Barriot. Beat Eric Anders by unanimous decision. 103 strikes to 87, so pretty close there. Eric Anders did get the 1 takedown in the fight there, but countered that by Barriot's a 1 knockdown in the fight there. But Barriot's been on a tear as of late. I know his last fight, Julian Marquez, he was kind of in some trouble there at the beginning and then able to rally back, get the win, stoppage win, may I add. But Eric Anders is no punk either. I mean, that guy's been around the block. He's fought the likes of like Khalil Rountree, Lyoto Machida. So, I mean, he's a guy who's definitely been in the UFC for a while. I would say Eric Anders would be veteran status because of how long he's been in the UFC. Even though he hasn't faced the highest level of competition per se, he's still been around long enough to garner a big enough name to be considered not necessarily a legend, I would say, but I know I just said that, but I mean, he's definitely got some notoriety. I mean, he's been around for a decent amount of time. But yeah, expect Marc-Andre Barriot to probably get a top 15 fight here soon. I would say close to it. But I'll say another fight in middleweight that was in the top 15 that ended, I would say, in a way that we were not happy about. Nasruddin Imavov headbutts Chris Curtis, accidentally opens up a big cut under Chris's eye. Chris was, my buddy pointed this out too. He's like, why are you trying to, he had the rag. He's like, why are you trying to stop the bleeding on a cut, but you're rubbing the rag into the cut, which is going to make it bleed more. Just hold it, put down pressure. Put the pressure down, that'll stop the bleeding. Why are you rubbing it? That doesn't make any sense, which I agree. That doesn't really make any sense. At the same time, though, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a drunk with the fucking horn hat on. I'm the MMA shaman. But, yeah. I mean, Chris Curtis was doing okay in this fight. There's really not much you can go off of with this one because it ended a little bit over halfway through the second round, but he was definitely getting outstruck. It was about 59 strikes to 34 for Imavov, 3 takedowns for Imavov, 1 submission attempt for Imavov, 57 significant strikes for Imavov. So only 2 of the strikes Imavov threw were not significant there. So by all counts, it looks like Chris Curtis was on his way to either 1, getting finished, or 2, losing a decision unless he was able to pull out a knockout win, which I didn't see very likely. But it's the name of the game there. I mean, sometimes shit like that does happen. Just sucks to see because he was begging the fight to go on, to keep continuing, but he made the fatal mistake of saying he cannot see, and when you tell the ref you cannot see, guess what? You're not fighting anymore. You're done. Hang up the gloves, go back to the locker room. You'll fight another day, just not for the rest of today. Miranda Maverick really shit the bed against Jasmine Jasdavicius, which I did not really see that coming. I mean, she was a pretty hefty favorite, a minus 295 for Maverick and a plus 245 for Jasmine to pull out the victory like that. Right on. Good for her. Women's fight, head and arm throws, takedowns, armbar attempts, really good with the kicks for Jasmine, but yeah, good for her. That'll get her probably another shot getting deeper into the rankings because Maverick was, number 13 or something like that at flyweight? Yeah, flyweight. Baby Zahabi, Ayman Zahabi, got a first-round KO against Orialing? I don't know. This Chinese guy. And I'm not saying that because he's Asian. He's literally from China, all right? He's Chinese. But he knocked out a Chinese guy. Good for him. Kyle Nelson actually got a upset win over Blake Builder, and it was a good fight, actually. I remember watching that one because I wasn't too drunk yet, so I was able to actually kind of pay attention to that one. I try and time my drinking when watching the fights. I'm like, all right, let's start drinking about the end of the early prelims, so that way by the time towards the end of the prelims start, I got a nice buzz going, keep it going during the middle of the card. Then once the main card kind of starts and kind of tapers down, then I can focus on the co-main and main event. I got a process. I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. But it was a pretty back and forth fight. You know, it was unanimous for Kyle Nelson there. Just by, like, again, with this fight too, when watching it, it was pretty easy to tell who won. Looking at the numbers, pretty even. I mean, just by looking at the numbers alone, you can make a case that Builder won because it's 84 strikes for Builder, 83 for Nelson, 59 significant strikes for Nelson, and 45 for Builder. So definitely landed more significant strikes, which showed in the fight as well too. So congratulations to him. Now, the fight that really stood out to me the most was David Dvorak versus Steve Erceg. Is that how you say it? I think it's Astro Boy is his fight name or something shit like that. I don't know. But, man, he really surprised me because Dvorak was a minus 265. And Erceg did not give a fuck about the odds. He went out there and fought like he's fought in the UFC many times. That kid is good. And for flyweight, he's a big flyweight. He's got nice striking. He's got great submission attempts. He knows how to fight in the pocket. He's tough as shit. I like this Steve Erceg guy. And he just beat the number 10 flyweight. So, I mean, bam, that puts you right in the rankings there. Maybe it puts you at number 10. Maybe it puts you at number 9. I don't know. But you're in the rankings. You just beat a ranked flyweight in the UFC. Congratulations to Steve Carell. He literally looks like Steve Carell. But yeah, that was a good fight. That was a great early prelim fight too. To kind of be like, okay, this card has some promise. And then Aldana had to come in and shit the bed. But yeah, first fight on the night, Diana Belbita, Maria Oliveira. Belbita won unanimous decision. Yippee, who fucking cares? But yeah, that's pretty much UFC 289 is in the books. Main takeaways: Amanda Nunes retires, leaves bantamweight in shambles because now we have to deal with the subpar fighters in that division fighting for the belt that she held. And I mean, honestly, if Amanda 3 years from now, like if she pulls a Triple C and wants to come back and try to regain her belt, I would bet the house that she would take it, regardless of who is champ. If it's Pena, if it's Pennington, if it's Holly Holm, regardless. I don't give a fuck. She goes in there and she takes that strap like it's nothing because I think she's that much better than the rest of that division. No more... Ow. My horns. No more women's featherweight. Thank God, because now we can finally get that disgusting thing off the website with the rankings page because it just showed Nunes holding 2 belts. Thank God, get that shit out of here. Charles Oliveira gets it done. We ride with Charles. We die with Charles. We love Charles. Charlie Olives, first round TKO with 50 seconds left on the clock. Oh, hopefully gets a title shot against Makhachev. I don't know if he does or not. Hopefully he does because I think that's the right thing to do. And then Mike Malott better call out some guys in the top 15. Better start moving these tickets, man. Get these Canadians on your side. I mean, the Canadians are already on your side, but get these other guys on your side as well, too, because you want to make the most money as much as possible. You want to garnish a fan base. You have all finishes in the UFC so far. Make the most of it. Go fight Ponzinibbio. Knock him out. UFC 289 is in the books, folks. That is a wrap for this card. It is over. It is done with. The next event on the calendar is going to be next week. I'm just getting that pulled up. I already know what it is, but just to double check. I'm one of those guys with the calculator checks what 2 plus 2 is still 4. Make sure they didn't change it up on me. Just want to make sure I'm right because I hate being wrong. Marvin Vettori versus Jared Cannonier is your main event. Arman Tsarukyan versus Joaquin Silva. What the fuck? Armin Petrosian versus Christian Dukin. Pat Sabatini, Lucas Almeida, Manuel Torres, Honey Barcelos, Dalby Salikov, Jimmy Flick. Yeah, I mean, not a bad card for a. Oh, there's a women's fight. Never mind. I'm just kidding. But not a bad fight card for a fight night. I mean, we're starting to get into a little bit better of a fight nights here, leading up into International Fight Week as well. So, I mean, after this fight card, you got Topuria Emmett, excuse me. You got Magomedov versus Strickland, and then you got International Fight Week, Yair Rodriguez versus Alexander Volkanovski and Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja. But we'll all get into those in later episodes here as we come closer to them. But other than that, my name is Dustin. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. Other than that, guys, you have yourself a great rest of your day. Till next time.